about how blockchain can help local governments by realizing their social tasks. My name is Sophie. I've been working on blockchain for about the past 5 years, on especially realizing implementations, for example, on social subsidies for the municipality of Zuidhoorn and the municipality of Nijmegen. For the people who want a book, I wrote a book about a year ago for Vereniging Nederlandse Gemeenten on blockchain. It's about the organizational, technical, and legal aspects of blockchain technology and the choices we can make within these aspects with the pros and cons. I've been working for consultancy firm Berenschot and work for the municipality of Utrecht now since 4 months. And next to that, I work for B Amsterdam. For some of you might know B Amsterdam on cryptography. It's an ecosystem for startups in Amsterdam. Today we'll talk about 4 themes. First of all, we'll talk about blockchain experiences within local governments in the Netherlands. Then we'll talk about how blockchain projects within local governments can survive the valley of death. Third of all, we'll talk about the smart city opportunities when it comes to blockchain. Jelle will tell us more about that. And last, we'll talk about the opportunities of combining blockchain and artificial intelligence, also when it comes to smart city questions. When it comes to governments working on blockchain, this ecosystem we made about a year ago, we can see that, a lot of governments within the Netherlands are experimenting when it comes to blockchain. And some of you might know this photograph made in Groningen. Eigenlijk in Groningen, yearly a huge blockchain hackathon is organized, and there's always a governmental track. Who of you know examples of experiences governments have when it comes to blockchain? Can you tell us an example you know about?
Yeah, so I'm from India. So in Mumbai municipality, they are trying to, there are irregularities in the land registry. So they are trying to make all the lands legal, and they want to trace to whom the land belonged earlier, because one land is being sold 2-3 times a year. To curb that, they are using the blockchain technology to build the certificates actually, and to validate the legality of the land.
Ownership,
so
actually. Yeah.
Small kind of a proof of concept that's going on, and if it's successful, then it will be rolled out in a large scale.
Yeah, it's also an idea I think Dubai is also working on, right? What kind of example do you know of? Yeah?
I know if Ireland was putting its administration on the blockchain, or at least trying to. I believe to how that project ended, but I think it was a nice opportunity.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And? And we're hearing about the other example you know later. Well, this is a picture also made during the first hackathon in Groningen. And this hackathon was won by Stichting Forus. They were the winner actually of the first edition. And they worked on building a platform that makes application, allocation, and handling of a governmental service unnecessary. The first implementation they've been working on is about the application, allocation, and handling of an income subsidy, and they implemented this within the municipality of Zuidhoorn. The subsidy is called Kindpakket, and it's about 300 euros a citizen receives a year for every child it has to buy a bike, a laptop, whatever the child needs but of course it's not meant to be spent on stuff like alcohol or something else, right? So we want the money to be spent well. And since the government knows, since the municipality knows who lives within the municipality, the government also knows what these people earn, and they know if people have children, yes or no. Well, why let people fill in forms, wait for months to know if they get a subsidy, yes or no, and then also have to do the declarations afterwards. So they worked on, first of all, a website for these people who receive the subsidy. On the website, a civilian can log in and can see what parties in town are working together when it comes to this subsidy. So where can I spend my 300 euros? Can I spend it at a bike store? Can I spend it at the laptop retailer? But I cannot spend it at, well, the alcohol store, as I told you. So as a civilian, I can see where I can spend my 300 euros. I can also see it on the map where these stores are located. And, well, I know where to go. I can also see what budget I have left over. So I already spent, well, about 146 euros. So I still have 154 euros for this year that I can spend. I can see when I spent it, where I spent it, and how much. That's something that was not possible beforehand. Beforehand, you could only spend the 300 euros, and you were not able, if you spent less, you were not able to spend the rest of your money. Well, you could not. And on the other hand, they also built an app, and the app, on the one hand, makes it easy, so you, as a civilian, you can see where you spent your money and on what, etc. But also for the shop owners, within the app, the transactions take place straight away, and the municipality can also see who to pay what at what moment. The municipality can now also see what budget is left within the subsidy. So you can see how the subsidy is used. You cannot see what it is spent on, but you can see what time, what amount of money is used within the subsidy, and what stores, what stores people go to spend the subsidy. So what kind of, if bikes are popular, laptops or something else. And the remaining budget, so within the subsidy, you can also see. In the ideal situation, Stichting Forus works on actually the API and the smart contracts within this solution, and anyone who would want to work on this can make his or her own app. The Kindpakket variation is the first app that is built by Stichting Forus, and they also share their code open source on GitHub. So who would want to look into that, that is possible. A second example within the Dutch government, where Dutch government is working on, is called Stem Het Telt. Something we've been debating on within the Netherlands actually every few years is if we should do voting by voting computers instead of papers. But does that really solve the question we have? Because the question we have is that not all votes are well counted during elections, and that's why we don't know if, in the end, the correct people are in our local governments at least. So there's a few examples within the last elections where, the counting didn't really go well. So there was a collaboration between the municipality of Groningen, Beerschot, and Lab 15 to actually increase transparency when it comes to counting votes, to improve the reliability, and to actually make sure that the people that are in our government are the correct ones being there. Even kijken. Zo. during the referendum that was held on March 21st in 2018, during the whole day, we could see how many people voted. So how many people that were able to vote really came and voted for the referendum. We could see the amount of voting passes, the amount of voters' passes, and proxy certificates, and the total votes. This we could see during the day, but we could not see what people voted. This, at the end of the day, the reference numbers, so these numbers, had to add up to counting the paper votes to see if the counting actually went correctly. And you could exactly see who voted where and what was voted at that certain place. Also, this code is open source and it's built by Lab 15. This pilot had different ambitions. First of all, improving technically. So we worked on the referendum first, and later on, municipality of Groningen worked on the municipality elections, and in the end, we might work on EU elections. First of all, we worked with a QR code, which people got sent home together with their vote, and in the end, also, we tried to improve the way of working with that, because the QR code was quite a basic way of working. We first did this in one municipality and 5 polling stations. In the end, like the next pilot, we did it also still in one municipality, but with 25 polling stations, which was already a lot bigger. And we're now this municipality of Groningen is talking within the EU if we might use this way of voting, counting votes within the European Union. Another example of experiences within municipalities when it comes to blockchain is about subsidies for electrical vehicles. The municipality of The Hague worked on this. This was a long process with 5 different parties involved, all doing different checks in different times, and all dependent on each other and waiting to do their own check. They were working on a new way of doing this, where all these checks by these 5 parties can be done at the same time. So if a citizen is living in a municipality, can be checked at the same time as the municipality can check if there's still budget within the subsidy, and or if the car was earlier registered, for example, on the same address. This is actually to simplify and make the process more efficient, cause less fraud, and correct, and actually using a correct way of processing personal data. That's the ambition that the municipality has. And opportunities that arise have to do with the way of decision making and actually new policy instruments, which they are working on now to look into that. The Association of Dutch Municipalities, VNG, also in 2017 already invented a program in which 5 to 10 municipalities in different stages actually worked on their own use cases while sharing actually lessons learned and also code with each other. And the lessons learned, they published this in the book named here. When it comes to experiences within Dutch governments, we can see there's actually 4 categories of blockchain applications within local governments. Well, the first we could call simplifying administrative processes when more parties are involved. Well, the example I just called from the municipality of The Hague is one of them. It's, well, the municipality started working on this because they wanted a more efficient way of this administrative process, less errors and less fraud. The second category is preventing instead of healing, changing actually a control function at the end of a process to more like a preventing function at the beginning of a process. Now the general audit room actually controls municipalities when actually money is spent, and then they try and correct things when things already happened. And actually, you would try to prevent. You would want to prevent this happening. So, trust comes central in governmental tasks. Then, the third category, I called it clear registration of ownership of information. Well, one of the experiences we see within the Dutch government, it's by one of the ministries, and it's about youth aid. Actually, now when someone needs youth aid, different social workers are involved by the same person. For example, someone who looks into the debt, someone who looks into psychological issues, etc. And all these different social workers have their own truth about this one person, and they all work from their own truth. So you would want one single point of truth, and people looking into that according to what they need from their job. A fourth category Dutch governments are working on, I call it citizen identity and managing your own data. It's about data ownership. Well, one of the ministries is also working on that and willing to have a new identity within 2020. So let's see if that happens. It's a bit coming close now, right? The second theme we were going to talk about is how blockchain projects can survive the valley of death. I think especially within governments. Everyone knows we have these technical aspects, right? What blockchain platform to use, how to do data security, identity authentication issues, etc. This we all know, but at the same time, we also have to work on these organizational aspects. So how does a new blockchain application work with policy and strategies, or the governance within an organization, or what's the business case, what's the HR policies occurring in this situation? And we also have to work on the overlapping issues. So legal aspects, for example, GDPR, but also as a municipality, can we do decision making by smart contracts? How do we do this? What does this mean for our citizens? How do we communicate with them? These are questions we need to find answers to before implementing a technical finished application. And at the same time, we have to put the theme on the agenda, do the prototyping and implementing this in regular work. So these technical, organizational, and legal aspects occur in all these three stages of new blockchain implementation. Well, the third theme, Jelle is going to tell us, yeah.
What's the value of that in this case? Is that there's so much going on that you kind of get stuck in the middle?
Yeah, or that it's so, let us say we only focus on the technical aspects, due to which we don't know how to implement an application in the end. So we have a nice technical application, but we don't know how to work with it. We didn't think about, for example, one of the examples, let me see, what I told you, the decision making in smart contracts. In one of the municipalities I've been working on blockchain, gemeente Nijmegen, in the beginning we didn't think of what this meant in the way of communicating with civilians. So civilians tried to reach us in one way, but we communicated digital. They try to reach us by paper. And it's not legally correct, because the way you approach a citizen should be the way a citizen can also approach you. And because we changed this way of communicating, we were not acting legally correct. This kind of, when this comes into the media, the project is killed. We could call it Valley of Death or the end of a project, but in the end, the thing I try to say is we have to take in these three types of aspects at the same time and answer these questions.
So is your experience that most projects get killed after an initial pilot, or have not sufficient momentum or planning to get to production?
Well, I think a lot of projects within the government, it's only my reference is local government, so a lot of projects get killed because pilots are a lot of the time only working on technical minimal viable products, prototypes, etc. And especially the other two aspects are the ones we have to make sure we have good answers to the questions in those types of aspects. And when no one thinks about that, and we only work on showing that an idea works or yeah. And it's very scary, right? For local government, we have kind of power. Don't know if that's the correct word, but we have a kind of a position in society, and this technology could actually change that for quite a bit, right? Because if algorithms or smart contracts or whatever decide this person gets a subsidy, yes or no, and we don't do it ourselves anymore, wow, what is our role in society? Because we were the ones deciding on who gets the subsidy, yes or no. But if technology does this, why are we on Earth? So that kind of discussions are, of course, discussions that occur. Yeah.
There's a lot of expectation management. For a lot of people who are not into the technology, it looks similar to magic. And they go like, okay, this is going to solve all our problems. And you probably say, well, it's not really that. But do they understand when you explain the limits and boundaries of project, of the project? And is that what the reason that you have of that value depth? Because you deliver what you think you had to deliver.
Yeah.
And then people are still disappointed. Go like, yeah, we didn't get whatever magic we thought we would get.
I think disappointment might not be the correct word. I think no. I think it's also about how far do I understand this technology, right? So if someone tells me an algorithm is going to make a decision instead of my colleague, what does this mean? What is my team going to look like? What am I going to do? These questions are quite scary because we've been doing the same things for, well, ages. And we have this certain position. So what is the public value a municipality can bring in society within 10 years if blockchain is really going to be implemented in different places? So I think it's more the scary part of what does this mean for me, my job, my colleagues, the work we do. I think that's more the question mark is the more scary thing than the not completely understanding the technology or the expectations, yeah. Yeah, the implications, yeah.
Is that for the local government that the hesitation of giving away their power that you just mentioned?
I think that's in the back of our minds, and on the other hand, there's always a kind of a dilemma when it comes to new technologies and governments, because we're paid from taxes, and what amount of money can you spend on experimenting with new technologies? Until where can you explain you spent a lot of money on experimenting with new technologies, or should you? It's also a dilemma I realize since I've been working here for 4 months, because you cannot decide we're not going to do anything with these new technologies and we're just going to leave it to the market, and as soon as we have a question we just ask the market what solution is best for us, because you also need to know what are we going to ask these people working on blockchain technology, AI, doesn't matter, right? What are we going to ask? What do we think is important when we work with these technologies? How do we specify what we need as a municipality when it comes to working with these technologies? So it's a dilemma to where are you going to invest in a new technology and what are you leaving up to other parties and hiring them for. So yeah.
So in fact, digging their own grave. They say full-blown yes to the technology.
So sorry, I didn't understand.
If they say yes to this technology and this change, they in fact digging their own grave.
Yeah, well, digging their own grave, I think it's, and I think it's good, like new technologies it's not only government, right? It's, I don't know what all trusted parties have to question themselves is, what is my public value within the future? I don't think governments will be unnecessary, but I think maybe the type of work they do will change. And so one of the things I talked about earlier was that we might not fulfill this controlling function anymore, like saying you get a subsidy or not, or you can rebuild your home in a certain way, yes or no. But maybe more like the party that facilitates these things within certain boundaries. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So as I told you, this is the theme Jelle is going to tell you a lot more about. I'm just going to do a short introduction. When it comes to smart cities within Utrecht, we said, well, it's information technology used to manage or govern our municipality. That's what we call a smart city. And one of the places within the municipality is called Stadsbedrijf. It's about 25% of our municipality is working within our public space, so collecting trash or maintaining parks, etc. And this part of municipality has to do with different issues right now. So one of them is how can we have more empty and open space within our municipality. Some of you who might live in Utrecht might have noticed that around the Dom we have a lot more open space right now than beforehand. No lanterns, no parking spots, etc. A second question we're working on, or second issue we're working on, it's about real-time data for more flexible outdoor space. For example, when we need to reach the city center, roads might work one way during the first part of the day and work the other way during the second part of the day. That kind of stuff we could think about. And the third one you might have heard of is the local energy generation for more efficient use, reuse and storage of energy. Who has heard about the Juliet use case? Yeah, so a lot of you might have heard, and that's where blockchain also plays a part in this reuse and storage of energy. As said, this theme you will talk about later. The fourth theme I would want to look into is the opportunities of combining blockchain and AI. Well, we have a lot of changes we have to do with as a municipality. So where cell phones, we didn't all have a cell phone like 12 years ago. Now everyone has a cell phone, a smartphone, and knows how apps work, robots clean our home, etc. Civilians also expect us as a government, to develop as well, right? So we have to be a smart administrator, and we need to know about new technologies. We need to communicate in different ways, and they also expect different things from us. New technologies, as blockchain and AI, are also an opportunity in fulfilling our tasks. So one of the ambitions is greening, while another one is how can we do this in a safe way? Well, the city will expand with 10% in the upcoming years. So these are the types of questions we're working on now. And I think new technologies, especially combining blockchain and AI, could be, could be opportunities in this. Well, this might be all common knowledge for you guys, but the opportunities for blockchain and AI, well, these are two technologies. They're all both location and time independent. Both can be used for repetitive tasks and to do these quick and flawless. Complex tasks can also be done quick and flawless, and pattern recognition. You can also judge like complex situations. Well, we have some short-term value models also. Everyone will know these. So how are we thinking on combining blockchain and AI within, well, the questions we're working on? So one of the first things we're working on is called a smart street scan. So we might see this in more places in Utrecht, right? So trash on the floor. Well, now we clean this actually in a quite inefficient way. It's very expensive, and we don't know where what trash is at what moment. We would like to know this to clean it in an efficient way, so we don't just drive around town randomly looking for trash, to say so. So we have two ambitions. First of all, we would like to clean only when and where it's dirty at a certain point. And second of all, we would like to know what trash is where and at what moment, and also how many cans, cigarettes, etc. do we sweep. For the first question, for this first tasks, we would like to work on dynamic routes. Our routes, the way we sweep the town now, are static, and we would like to work on dynamic routes, and we can do this actually in different ways. So first, we could use smart cars, which tell us when, for example, to refuel the cars, when it's not busy, for example, at the refueling station, because now these cars are waiting for one or the other to refuel the cars. Well, we could do this, for example, this in a more efficient way. When our smart car tells us when to do the refueling. Second of all, civilians and employees can detect waste, so they can tell us where's the waste, and we know where to go. So that's a second kind of thing we thought of. Third of all, we can optimize routes by using different types of data. So, for example, when it's autumn, we know there's leaves everywhere, so we might need to sweep more often, and different places where the trees are, etc. And when it's summer, schools are closed, so we might not need to sweep around the school areas, that kind of information. And another way we thought of optimizing routes is looking really into what we find and in what amounts and where we find it. So the cars already have GPS on them, and when we can detect what we find, we also know how to, for example, work on nudging. This brings me to the second, actually, part of this question, and this is about how can we actually try to make sure the waste doesn't end on our streets, but only in trash cans, for example. We thought of different types of nudging. So nudging by making trash cans fun, right? By making the area around the trash cans fun. Nudging by addressing people personally, so talk to them, tell them stuff, etc. By making it easy to, get rid of your trash also when you're cycling or in the car. Or by, for example, working with neighborhood challenges where you can win a prize. Last thing we thought of was personal communication through the apps we already have, the ways we already communicate with our civilians. We could also use these for preventing the trash to come on the street. Well, combining AI and blockchain. So first of all, we're now working on object detection. So to detect what we sweep where, I'll tell you guys later how we're working on this now. In the object detection part, we use artificial intelligence actually as a basis. So the algorithm tells us what we find on the streets. And second of all, we would like to work with blockchain technology, and this also is for the micro jobs. So the route plannings are the micro jobs sent to different cars who eventually base their routes on the different micro jobs they receive. So this is the way we'd like to combine this now. And I'll tell you later on how we're working on this. Tada Manifest, for some of you might know, this is, I'm not going to look into that very much, but that is actually the basis of how we work with it, with the different data, not concerning any technology, so it doesn't matter what technology we work on. This is the base of how we work with the data within this. And how are we now working on combining these two? First of all, together with center data, party actually specifically working on artificial intelligence and nudging principles. We're now working together with them on a minimal viral product on actually the artificial intelligence part. So how can we train the algorithm to recognize what we sweep in what amount and where? And at the same time, we're working together with the municipality of Amsterdam, The Hague and Rotterdam also since today on actually an open source object detection kit actually. So we are going to be using this for our trash on the floor, but Amsterdam is going to be using this for like the plastic bags we put our trash in and the carbon papers people put on the street. So we're working on the AI part together. The blockchain part, I'm still looking into how can we convince other municipalities also to work on this together. A bit more difficult because blockchain is a bit more the scary part, right? We talked on this earlier, but we're still, yeah, Utrecht still has the ambition to combine both of these technologies in, well, the solution for our sweeping question actually. Is it clear, this project we're working on? Do you guys have any questions? Yeah?
With this sweeping, why do you need blockchain, or what can you do with blockchain what you couldn't do without blockchain to launch that project, or what specifically add?
Well, do you need blockchain? In a lot of use cases, you could also have a different type of solution. We think it's, in this project, it might be helpful because you can work with these micro jobs and know what car went where, so you don't send cars, sweeping cars to a place double. You know when a job is ended, you know when, for example, a citizen tells us it's dirty here. We say we react within a certain amount of time, we will remove this trash. Well, we now then know when this is done by whom and where, right? We could also say we don't use blockchain and we do the dynamic route planning without blockchain. Then we just hope a micro job, not called micro job then, but is picked up and someone will drive along the trash. So is blockchain necessary in this? No, I think it's an opportunity because it, the two parts of this solution actually make that the real efficiency we try to achieve might really occur. So, yeah.
Can I maybe continue on this then? Because I'm still missing the value of using exactly a blockchain, because as you say now, it's really just a really fast, reliable database.
Yeah.
So why does it need to be a blockchain then? Because you don't need to have a blockchain to have a fast, reliable database, because it's really cool, of course, like saying blockchain and AI is really valuable, and there's a lot of value in using blockchain technology.
Yeah.
But what you're describing is a
Yeah, only using it like the one single point of truth. Yeah, that's why we're using it. And I think the discussion is a lot. I realize the discussion a lot of times is about, do you need blockchain, yes or no? And I think like in the really blockchain has a huge potential, right? And the further you go into this potential, the more disruptive it is, and the more scary it becomes. And I guess I just want to achieve that we really have a implementation of the and also learn about these new technologies, learn working with them, do this in small steps. I think I have a different, how do you say, ambition, first of all, in realizing this, to also show it's not scary, we can work with it, it will help us in a certain way, etc., and do this in small steps. And I know, like, the disruptiveness we can create with this technology, it's not going to be in this type of solutions.
So to me, that sounds like the value in this case, right? It's changing the mindset of people that are working in local government.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Isn't it actually a problem to use blockchain? In a lot of the slides you use the assumption that you have perfect influence, but by law you're usually required to be reasonable, and reasonable is really hard to program,
Yeah.
especially when it's logged in an immutable blockchain. How do you deal with that? Because there are going to be errors
Yeah.
logged into the blockchain.
Yeah.
And right now, a database would actually be better there.
Yeah, might be. So this is of course a question that arises very quickly, certainly when it comes to the subsidy story I told you guys earlier, right? When the algorithm, for example, makes a wrong decision and someone does or does not get a subsidy while he does or does not, occur for this. We always said, and I always think, for 80% technologies can solve a problem, a question we have, and it's for the easy 80% of our work. But doesn't matter if you use blockchain, AI, or any other technology, right? Automation is an answer to a part of your questions, but will never be 100%, especially because it's a lot of times it needs a person to look into something, and technologies are not that smart yet. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
When a pilot or an experience with blockchain is successful,
Yeah.
who decides whether it will be implemented?
That's a funny question, right? So as you see within local governments, it's blockchain pilots often started with one or two people saying, I think this has an advantage, or this could be help me with the question I'm working on, or etc. So it first starts with one or two people, and as soon as a pilot, with new technology, comes into the phase of implementing, it's different people who decide about it, because the pilot prototyping phase costs you about 30 to 50,000 euros. Something like that, right? So it's not that amount of money. When we decide really work with the technology, actually it becomes more political. So now I'm also working on something about smart lampposts, and you see it directly. This becomes really political, and it's not even the question: do we want to work with blockchain or not? But political questions arise about more the aspects I talked about earlier. So how do we use data? Where do we store them? How can we guarantee privacy, etc.? People are, when it comes political, that's where the big money, we decide on big money, right? And it's also different questions arise. So when and where, I think when it comes, the decision is made. When we come to implementing, when we leave the pilot phase and go to implementing, these decisions are made, and they're always made by like different people that started working on the pilot. So that's also what makes it difficult to survive this valley of death we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Okay. Jelle, I think it's your turn.
All right, good evening. My name is Jelle Millenaar and I work for the IOTA Foundation. We are the developers of the IOTA distributed ledger technology. I'm a software engineer there, only for 2 months, so even more recent than Sophie at Utrecht. And tonight I'll talk about smart cities and some particular use cases where you can see where we as an IOTA Foundation contributed to one of those proof of concepts that hopefully will pass the valley of death. Right. Tonight I'll talk about 3 subjects. I'll give an introduction about IOTA in general for those who don't know about it. And I'll talk about smart energy and the industry marketplace, which are 2 particular concepts that really suit well for smart cities. All right, so welcome to the hyper-connected era. Right now, we're still living in a world where every company is building an application which stores their data at that company's server. We don't share much data. We keep it all together at a company because, you know, it's our data as a company. Why would I share this? And we would like to go to a world where the data is open, where all data can be accessed and that we can really make a smart world, a smart city. But it's not that easy to get there, so that is our goal, and this is what really would enable smart cities to start developing and start to really change our lives. So the immense flow of data that you would get if we would open up all the data silos from all the different companies, all the different devices that are currently generating data would really give many new opportunities. And that would really enable the power of the Internet of Things. Devices all communicating their data, making decisions based on the data of devices around them or on their destination where a device wants to go, really makes new opportunities happen. And that's where you would really create a smart city. So a smart city in the terms of IOTA, I often describe a little bit like an organism. So you just have input, right? Lots of data as input. These are your stimuli that you get daily as a person. And based on those stimuli, you make decisions and you do things. So what if a city starts to do exactly that? It gathers lots of data and makes decisions based on that data, not as a single entity, but as a group of little entities, of little devices that does this. It can make life a lot easier, for example, if a municipality has some broken lampposts like we were just talking about, and devices detect that, like a car driving by detects it, sends the data to the open data pool that we just created, and maybe a repair guy sees that and just goes there to repair it, immediately gets paid for it. Like there doesn't need to be an interaction from the municipality at that point. That's really just responding to stimuli and just getting a profit model on top of that. So the repair guy, he just earns money for this, but it makes everyone's life easier to automate this in an open data way. So what distributed ledger technologies generally try to bring into this are the 3 things that I list at the bottom. Data integrity. Once you publish data to a distributed ledger, to a blockchain, it cannot be changed. That's the immutability aspect of it. And it really starts to put trust into the data. With IOTA, you can also track the source of the data. That always comes from the same source. And therefore, you can put more and more trust in the data that you know, all right, this comes from this car, this comes from a lamppost, this comes from a temperature sensor on this and this location, and the data integrity becomes better. These microservices that I just talked about, like the repair guy, it would be nice to have a nice automated payment system for this, where you don't actually have to do anything as a person. that all the devices can do this automatically. These are automated payments, and that's what a distributed ledger also brings to the table. And lastly, also trust, that you know what the device is supposed to do, that you're reading data from, so that you don't accept temperature data from a lamppost, for example, but rather from temperature sensors. That it makes a little bit more sense. So that's what distributed ledger technology tries to bring to the table. It also adds data monetization, and I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle to enable smart cities. I say, let's open up all data. You start. Nobody's going to start there, because why would they open up their data? But what if I pay them for it? I just pay you. Like if I ask anyone here, can you share me your GPS data for a week? Then nobody's going to say yes, because that's an invasion of your privacy. But if I pay you for that, you might consider, because then it's a trade of value. You share your data, I give you some money in return. And that's just data monetization. And devices can do the same thing. And devices can start sharing data, and we really enable all that input that is required to enable the smart cities. And the underlying DLT properties that are required here are the immutability, so that data is once locked cannot be changed anymore. The same with payments, that once a payment is done you can't undo it. The decentralization, if I make a very cool smart city and all the data is shared and it's hosted by Facebook, I'm not sure if many people here would be very happy about that, because then we have one party that's completely in control of this, and if they decide to ban a certain person from this, that they can't use the system anymore, they can do that, and there's not much we can do about that, except maybe go to Utrecht municipality and say, hey, what's up with this? And yeah, the payment protocol is quite important here, as I've mentioned before. So for those who don't know IOTA, we are a little bit different than a blockchain. We're not actually a blockchain. That's why I keep saying the fancy term of distributed ledger technology, which is the umbrella term where we do fall under. So we recognized a problem with blockchain, and that's mostly the linearity of how blocks are added to a blockchain. So a block is filled, it gets added to the blockchain, and everything, all the transactions that didn't fit in the block, they'll have to wait for the next one. Everything is serial, and that's not the fastest it can go. So that introduces a cost where people compete to join the block, and it lowers the throughput, because you really have, what's it called, a bottleneck. Yeah, bottleneck. You really have a bottleneck that needs to be solved here. So this is how we do it with IOTA. We just parallelize the whole process, and what you're seeing here are individual transactions being added to the IOTA tangle, is how we call it. And because it's this parallel, it means that the throughput gets improved a lot. And since we don't use blocks anymore, nobody needs to decide what enters the blockchain on a specific order. We also don't need miners anymore. If you don't need miners, you don't have to pay them. So we can say we are feeless. So that means you don't have to pay any token value to do a transaction. And when you're thinking in smart city context, right, we're not talking about a few data transactions that will happen in a day. Now we're talking about thousands of transactions of data, of value, and everything. And if I want to send, let's say, 1 cent per GPS data point that I just all purchased from you, I don't want to pay 50 cents in transaction data to do all those payments. So we have this new animation that's very recent that really shows if the transactions go up and up and up, and you start using blockchain on a really wide scale, it really becomes unscalable. It's a scaling problem. And with IOTA, we remain zero. It will remain feeless. So that's why we believe that IOTA can actually achieve the smart city idea. So this is how the tangle generally looks like. You have transactions that all reference each other and therefore also look at the network and contribute and say, we believe that these previous transactions were valid, and I put my weight behind it when I put my transaction in there. So our basic saying is, I help the network, and I hope that the network will therefore help me. I say this is the truth, and therefore others will follow me. If I start to reference transactions which are incorrect, which try to spend money that doesn't exist, then nobody's going to reference my transaction because I'm referencing something that's a lie, that's not the real truth. So if I want to be part of the network, I have to participate in a correct way. So that gives high scalability, 0 fees. Something else that we're also focused on is low resource intensity. So a small IoT device needs to be able to participate in such a network to be part of the smart city context. And so we focus on that as well. As I said, we have data transfers as well. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We're also quantum robust, which means that we are not afraid of the threat of quantum computers, which might happen in a decade or so. So we're trying to be future-proof. So data, you actually don't see that one very well, but so data transactions are very important here. We're not just talking about payments, we're also talking about the data that the IoT devices collect, that other devices also collect. And we created an extra protocol to achieve real data integrity. So any data that hits the blockchain or hits IOTA as Tangle, it's immutable, it cannot be changed. But how do you know it comes from the same source? That it's always the same source. So that's why we created masked authenticated messaging. Masked stands for encrypted. Authenticated means that we know it comes from the same source. And a messaging means that it's a data stream. So you know, first I say this is the temperature right now. An hour later I'll register next temperature and you know that they are related to each other. That doesn't necessarily solve the garbage in, garbage out problem, which some of you might know. Because if I just tell that the temperature right here is 100 degrees, I can put that on IOTA and there's not much you can do about that. But we're trying to make that as hard as possible. So actually a community project in the IOTA community created the crypto core, which is IOTA hardware acceleration. So that means that you can really achieve or integrate IOTA quickly into applications, into devices, in a very quick manner. So you basically put in this chip, and it is very secure, and it makes sure that it becomes as close to the source of the data as possible, so that there can be nothing in between that can alter the data. So it's all about the data integrity. So that's all about IOTA that I'll bore you with tonight. But a little bit about the IOTA Foundation. So we are a non-profit in Germany, and we're at the moment about 120 full-time employees across 23 different countries. So it's very nice that I often have to talk with my colleague in Texas. That makes life very easy. And our goal is really to help develop IOTA, but also develop the adoption of IOTA across the world into, for example, smart city projects. All right, so let's really talk about the smart cities projects that we've done so far. So smart energy is one of the bigger subjects that we've dived into, and we've done that under this consortium. This is the Positive City Exchange Consortium. We are a member here. It's a 30 million euros funded Horizon 2020 project by the European Union, and it has 32 partners. You can see them right here. IOTA Foundation on the bottom right, of course. And there are different testbeds across Europe where we're really trying to experiment with smart cities. And we actually recently had a pretty big moment where we were really showing a proof of concept which was being built, which was in one of the leading cities in the Positive City Exchange, which was Trondheim. And I'll show you a short video about what was achieved there. It was in collaboration with some of our other partners like the Jaguar Land Rover and NG Lab.
Today at the Powerhouse, what we're demonstrating is that using a technology like IOTA, we're able to track the provenance of electricity from solar panel all the way to electric vehicle. And then inside the vehicle, we can offer our customers a new option. They can charge solely from renewable resources. The IOTA protocol allows something called masked authenticated messaging, MAM. Using masked authenticated messaging, you can put a message on the tango that will say where the electricity came from. The vehicle is then able to interpret these messages and decide whether or not it wants to accept the electricity. IOTA was specifically built for the Internet of Things, and the vehicle is a rolling Internet of Things. It also uses feeless transactions, which is very important in a concept like this. By getting involved, either participating in or getting learnings from smart city projects like City Exchange and this Powerhouse building, we're able to take these learnings and figure out what our customers want, how they interact with the cities of the future, and any new services that we need to offer as a car manufacturer.
A smart city is basically a city that uses digital services or data or technologies to make it easier for people to live their lives in a sustainable way. And the same way that we now have our smartphones, where you have all these kinds of apps and all kinds of services that can make your life easier. So imagine if we could do the same for a city. We can create neighborhoods that are able to generate more energy than we consume. And we want to make sure that these are solutions that can be used by many cities.
Involving cities, setting up dialogue, setting up arenas, so we can get more sustainable solutions, increase the citizens' involvement, and in the end create a better city. Because of the laws and the regulations and the money system, we can't do this transaction that we want to do. That's why IOTA is a very interesting partner for us, because they are looking into how we can sell and buy data, because that will be an important asset in the future.
Right, so that really showed, I think, one of the biggest proof of concepts that we've done with smart cities. So the Trondheim municipality was involved here. They built the Powerhouse, which was an energy positive building, giving it out, its energy out to cars, buses around it, and really trace that origin of the energy. So what we generally do at the IOTA Foundation is when we create such a proof of concept, we don't want it to end there. We would like to open source it, and you can do that by just open sourcing the code. What we try to do is open source the entire concept. And this is what we call blueprints. You can find these on our documentation website. I'll happily link it to you if you ask me afterwards. And here we, for example, have a blueprint for peer-to-peer energy trading. So you can imagine that buildings right now already are starting to generate more energy than they actually need. They start to store that locally in their own batteries, but at some point that is filled up. So that energy is just wasted very often right now. The energy net cannot handle the energy to flow from one house to another very often. It's not made for that. Especially how it's regulated under the energy net itself. So what we here show is that you can register this energy on IOTA. Like you have the input of the energy on your left side from the different devices, and through their producers they publish this to IOTA under a MEM channel to show this is the amount of energy I've contributed to the energy pool in my neighborhood. And then another participant, a consumer, might want to use that energy, and they can purchase like specific pieces of the energy which is registered, and they know this is basically what I bought up. So I know it is green energy which was generated locally. And then it is no longer available in the grid, at least the data representation of that energy, right? So you really start to allow energy trading. And if we envision a world where many people or many buildings are generating this energy and they don't need it at the moment, like during the day you get a lot of solar energy but you don't use it much, but the mall next to your house really needs this energy because they are offering charging services to their customers for their cars, then this energy trading becomes possible, and your house can actually start to earn you money. And maybe in the evening there are, for example, some windmills here that can give you some power back to handle all your television, watching what you're doing in the evening, and charging your car in return, in which case you would pay back with the mall. So really this trading really incentivizes more green energy at house level in the neighborhoods themselves. And so we created this blueprint. It has code examples on how to create this, and some design examples, architecture examples to really set this up. So if people want to start creating a peer-to-peer energy trading, please go to our website and you already have a very good starting point. There's a question. Yes. So how do you integrate it with Eneco, which is an energy provider here in the Netherlands? Yeah, they'll have to be on board if you want to use their energy grid. And actually I'll show you an example of where this was in the Netherlands researched in collaboration with the energy grid. They are very interested in this in general because in the Netherlands already has this problem where the grid itself cannot handle the amount of green energy which is being generated in some of the neighborhoods. I think especially the north of the Netherlands is really experiencing this. So they want to help with this. This is important for them as well because a lot of energy is just wasted. So you might want to integrate it there, but in the case that you can actually have your own cabling between houses, and you could actually take it off the grid. You can keep a whole town off the grid and just trade it efficiently there. Do remember that if everything is, for example, solar powered, then you might have a problem in these weeks with the fall and no sun ever reaching us. So it would really need to have a continuous stream of energy. But even then, there are some very interesting examples there. If we go very extreme, I was going to save this for a little bit later, but now it's coming up. Cars are basically driving batteries, right? And if they're autonomous and they can drive around on their own, they can charge at a large town, for example, that's producing too much energy, and drive themselves to a town that needs the energy because it doesn't have the correct natural energy under the current conditions, and then leave its charge there to support it, and then maybe drive back with the last bit to recharge again. So you really can use cars to basically drive the battery to where it is needed. It's a very futuristic version, but it would be pretty cool if your car starts earning you money while you're just sleeping, for example, or when you're working from home. Another question?
I'm trying to understand the main transition that the main concept what it's doing at the moment is dynamic pricing, right? So it's putting in at the moment the whole grid has gray and green energy, and if we just all earmark, if we want to buy the green energy, then the gray energy providers who are still the coal and other providers, they need to
down their production, and then ramped it back up once the green energy is no longer available.
Mm-hmm.
And the transition from here to there is mainly, one about a ledger, and the other thing is about actually transporting the energy to the right place, and that's where the cars come. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And actually having a personal grid, or having the ability to make use of the grid of energy providers if they're open to working in a collaboration on this. And you'll be surprised how many are interested in these kind of cases. But yeah, you're very correct there. So we actually see quite a bit of this return in this video.
In tomorrow's world, we'll all drive electric cars. And by using solar panels and windmills, we'll generate our own renewable energy. With smart charging, we'll make sure we use 100% of what we generate. This means that all kinds of devices have to start communicating with each other, and there'll be a need to make or receive payments for their services. That may sound complicated, but in practice, people won't even notice the devices are at work. Let's say you work from home today. Your electric car is parked outside and is charged by the overcapacity from the solar panels on the nearby school. In the evening, the energy stored in your car will now power the lights in your house. And together with other nearby cars, you might even be providing the power for a concert in the local park. Throughout the night, windmills located just outside the city will refill the car batteries. So in the morning, you leave for work fully charged on renewable energy. To successfully automate this whole process, both data and value transactions have to be calculated for every exchange between these devices. In the future, these will increase exponentially. The old approach of registering every electricity exchange centrally and then paying through the bank afterwards is not particularly appropriate for these kinds of microtransactions. Luckily, there's a new kid on the block: cryptocurrencies. These are way more suitable thanks to the underlying distributed ledger technology, or more simply, DLT. It is secure, transparent, and peer-to-peer, and supports both data and value transactions. The best-known DLT application is the Bitcoin, but because of limitations in its technology, it's not really suitable either. But hang on, recently, better alternatives have become available. One of them, IOTA, makes use of the Tangle, a new kind of technology, which is ideal for these microtransactions. It is fast and costs close to nothing because the users validate all the transactions themselves. It's an ideal, decentralized approach. To explore this possibility, we've built an IOTA charging station prototype, where you can use IOTA to pay and charge. No need for a card or subscription. When connecting cars, solar panels and windmills to the IOTA network, all these devices will be able to sort out the transactions and their related payments themselves. It's easy, safe and reliable. Exactly what we need to live in tomorrow's smart charging world. Join us in further exploring these exciting opportunities. Let's co-create.
ALAD NL researches and tests the possibilities for smart charging on behalf of the Dutch grid operators.
So, as the name might suggest, ALAD NL is actually Dutch. So they have been working on this already as well, and really shows that this is really the way that smart cities can be achieved. That smart energy really is a big part of this, and it really just enables new business models, new features that we currently don't have. Both cases that I've shown so far are also based on cars, and like I said before, Jaguar Land Rover is was pretty involved, especially in the Trondheim proof of concept, and they also really show what smart cities and cars, how they combine well. So cars are now connected, and in the future they will be autonomous, and they can start to do all the annoying little things for you. So they can pay for their own charging. You don't have to get out of your car to pay. You don't have to pay for tolls anymore. The car does that for you, so you can drive right through. Not really a problem in the Netherlands, but can be in other countries. Pay for parking. We currently have an app for that, which is already quite an improvement over before that, where you had to purchase a ticket and get it back into your car and put it there. So what if you can just walk out of your car and it can do all the payment for you, and when it drives away, it stops the payment, so you don't have to worry, did I actually click it on time, and did I cancel, or did I stop the payment flow? It can all do that for you. You don't have to worry anymore. That's the smart city that we want to go to. You don't have to worry anymore. And there, a fun one that I want to reference is monitor road conditions. That's something that Jaguar Land Rover themselves came up with. They said pothole detection, where they find a pothole in a road, they can let the municipality know that there are some issues and that it should be resolved. But this could be done for trash, as we were talking about just before. Why let the municipality do that? Why let people do that? If we have a bunch of cars driving around basically registering everything because they have cameras to be autonomous. So there are really big opportunities for this. Obviously, cars can get paid for providing that information to the municipality, and you can get lots of data because lots of cars pass by the same trash, which means that a single car saying something is not very relevant, but if like 90% of the cars that pass by say it, then you're pretty sure that you should clean up the trash there as a trash cleaning company or the municipality. So lastly, I would like to go towards industry marketplace. I know we're running a little bit over time, so I'm looking, if you want to leave, it's okay. But I think we have beer afterwards, is that correct? So you should probably stay. So the industry marketplace was actually the first project that I myself also contributed to when I joined the IOTA Foundation, so I was quite happy with this one. And this is another video, but I hope you're enjoying them.
The industry marketplace enables the autonomous trading of products and services for humans and machines. It provides a trusted, scalable, secure, and vendor-neutral platform for all industries to increase automation, reduce costs, and optimize workflows. How does it work? It all starts with identity. Every participant registers through an integrated decentralized identity system. This ensures the authenticity of the participants. Organizations are able to authenticate their own devices after their participation has been approved. The industry marketplace utilizes an open source communication language developed by academic institutes.
So I think this one requires a little bit more background before I show the full video. We created an industry marketplace, and it's basically for a smart city, it can be a chore marketplace where the municipality or cars or whatever, they can find out problems, or you yourself have a service that you want to have done for you, and you can just put that request on a marketplace, and devices themselves can bid for this. They can say, I can do this for this much money, and so some other device can undercut that, or can say, I can do it better because I have more luxury during your ride, that kind of thing. So with that context, I'm going to continue the video.
It enables interconnectivity and is used by the different machines and vendors to interact. The content of each request is described by a catalog of machine-readable attributes and properties. This ensures that other machines immediately understand which context and criteria are being requested.
So when you put a request out there, let's say I want to drive from A to B, and please, one autonomous car bring me there. If that from A to B is like 50 kilometers, and there's a car that says, all right, well, I can drive 40 kilometers, then that's not sufficient. Or if you're with 6 people, but the car has only 4 seats, again, that's not sufficient. So it actually uses a standardized list of properties for these kind of tasks, for these kind of devices, that's standardized by E-Class, which is a German standardization party, and that basically the machine understands what you need, and it can prove that it fits those criteria. So when you automatically purchase a service from autonomous car, you know it will have enough seats and enough range for you to get to your destination. Or the municipality might pay for the removal of trash, and it knows that it has at least enough capacity to bring all that trash to its correct destination. So the properties are quite important here.
The marketplace can be applied to a wide number of industries and scenarios. In this case, a passenger is requesting a mobility service to get to his destination. Starting point, destination, and other important information is described by unique attributes which the autonomous car understands. It then offers a bid on the contract. Through an immutable audit log, all steps are encrypted and documented to fulfill regulatory, financial, legal, and other corporate aspects. After arrival, the buyer pays the car directly through the industrial marketplace, using the integrated IOTA token and without any fees. The industry marketplace is available as open source software and works in public and private environments. It was developed by world-leading academic and standardization bodies, corporates, and thought leaders to allow a secure, autonomous, and vendor-neutral integration for Industry 4.0. To join the industry marketplace, please visit industry.iota.org.
Right, so the industry marketplace is a very wide platform idea. Anything can be put on there, any kind of request for a service to be done by machines, by people probably, whatever you can imagine. And I think that something like this can be very much the basis for a smart city. I've talked a lot of examples tonight that I've mentioned. It can be done through here. Register that something is broken, the bid can be, or the request can be placed there to be fixed, and a municipality, for example, could pay for that. If it's a service that you want for yourself, you're the one that's paying for it. And the devices, or even the people, doesn't necessarily have to be devices, that provide the service, they can bid on this, and once some criteria is met, or you say, well, you can bid for X amount of time, or I just want it under this amount of money, then a contract is made, it's written down in the data marketplace, or in the industry marketplace. What happened? Not sure here. Okay, I'll let you fix it. And yeah, it can all be done in a very secure way on a platform. So if anyone tries to cut out the contract, don't pay, that kind of thing, it's all registered on a distributed ledger, and their trust in that party will then be reduced. So in that way, it's also secure. I think I'll give it 1 second, and otherwise I was very near the end. I had one more video which was kind of optional. I'm gonna probably allow you to see the slides as well, and you can see the video, unless it seems to start working. Do we want to see one more video, or do we really want to ask questions under beer? Beer or video? Do I send for hints for beer? And for video? I see more for the video. Okay, it's only 3 minutes. So, what's cool about this video? This is a very, very futuristic vision that one of our German partners has, and it's all about actually a lot of the things that we've talked about to automate specific services in a smart city. It also has a little bit of a fun aspect in it. It's kind of a funny video, in my opinion. So those could be like devices that provide services in a municipality. Like giving a ball back, that's like a very important service, I think. As you can see, they've also integrated the IOTA token. That's the IOTA logo that you saw spinning. So they really see the automation of payments So someone exited the vehicle that provided the service and it automatically does the payment. Cleaning up trash, very relevant for tonight's discussion. So they have this particular 6-wheel design, and there's actually a little bit of a reason behind that. They don't just want to look futuristic. I think it comes up in a few seconds. So you see here actually that it has done a service and wants to provide another service. So what it does, it now is a car, and it detaches the bottom or the back part of it, and you can see that the front part can come off, connect to something else, and it can provide another service again. So it can really dynamically respond to the needs in a city. Is transport really needed right now, or is cleaning really needed right now? And it can just drive off and do its thing. And here just people need the service to go from A to B. They will not automatically pay as they enter or leave the car. And it's dog friendly. This was done by EDEC, and these are their city bots. Obviously, this is a very futuristic vision that they're working towards, but they've won, I think, an award when they were showing this at a particular event, because they really show their vision, and I think they have a nice prototype of this as well. So maybe this is how the future will look like. I hope they might design the cars a little bit better to also have a little bit more taste, but other than that, I think the general idea is actually very cool and really shows where smart cities could go to. We're not only talking about just optimizing processes we have right now, we're really trying to add new features to our lives, to just simplify our lives, automate the things we don't want to worry about. That's all I have to show you tonight. Hey, thank you for your attention.